I won't go through what the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine reported, since it's a 395-page paper back in January, but many took heart in the following. There is conclusive or substantial evidence that cannabis or cannabinoids are effective for what we call the big three: treatment of chronic pain, treatment of nausea and vomiting as a function of chemotherapy, and treatment of muscle spasticity related to MS. More recently, since the report was issued, the senior author of the paper, Marie McCormick, has noted that, in fact, it seems to be useful in reducing some forms of very severe child seizure disorders. To many of you in the audience, I know that is not a surprise, but to many out there, it is, and it's good that we have it out there. In addition, there's moderate or limited evidence for a range of other conditions suggesting that additional research is needed. I would say demanding that additional research is needed. Enter the MIND program. Marijuana Investigations for Neuroscientific Discovery is a program I started at McLean Hospital 2.5 years ago. Why? It was designed to basically understand the effects of medical marijuana use on a range of things, including cognitive performance, clinical state, quality of life, where applicable, brain structure, brain function, and a range of other measures. We just don't have this data available. The program supports a number of projects designed to examine cannabinoid-based therapies for a range of indications and conditions, and we use longitudinal, observational, cross-sectional, survey, and clinical trial models, but not all at the same time. That'd be a neat trick. So I'm going to show you some data from an ongoing longitudinal observational study that's very exciting. This study was specifically designed really truly to look at the effect of medical marijuana treatment on cognitive performance, as well as mood, sleep, quality of life, brain structure, and function in patients before they begin using. That's really important. This study is designed to follow patients over a minimum of 1 year. We've now gotten permission to follow them out for 18 months and 24 months. Patients can use for any number of indications, and their choice of products, which we chart, what they're using, where they got it, what they're told is in it. So we have the information from the dispensary. We record it throughout the course of the study, how often, et cetera, mode of use. Then we have their most commonly used samples analyzed by an outside laboratory. Our laboratory representatives is right here, speaking in this very session. The potential participants are referred from local medical marijuana certification centers or physicians, some of whom are also here. We're eternally grateful for all of you sending us patients. The inclusion-exclusion criteria are simple. Patients must have a valid certification for medical marijuana use or plans to use products that don't require certification, for example, industrial hemp-derived products. Certification can be for any indication, but they must be marijuana naive at the outset of the study. This is important. And if they have any history of recreational marijuana use, it must be several years in the past. Until very recently, the average number of years since heavy recreational use was in excess of 7 or 8. Now we're down to about 3. So they have to be THC negative at baseline. We wrote our first paper from this study at the end of last year called Splendor in the Grass. It's been viewed just under 35,000 times. To date, and I guess this issue was nominated for the Frontier Spotlight Award. I only mention this because it underscores what the nation is interested in learning, which is about the effect of the use of cannabis. We need more research. So I have some updated data to show you. We now have 38 patients who have completed their baseline visit, and 19 thus far have completed their visit 2. So they're naive at baseline, then we see them after 3 months of treatment. Average age is about 50, predominantly right-handed. The indications range: pain, anxiety, PTSD, sleep, mood, attention, and other. What's other? Ulcerative colitis, chronic migraines, petit mal, seizures. How are they using? They're using less than every day, and we've heard some of that earlier in this conference as well. They don't need to use every day. They use just a little less than twice a day. They use about 9 times a week, and they're using about 1.6 grams. What do they use? They smoke conventional flower product. They vaporize conventional flower product. They vaporize oils and concentrates, and you can see that there's other use of oils and concentrates, tinctures, medical edibles, and topicals, a lovely array of modes of use. But what about the data? I do not have a pointer, but I will guide your eye to the important part of the slide. If you look, the very first thing that jumps out, I see the pointer, is a significant reduction in depressive symptoms. So this is self-report. This is not examiner-driven. This isn't the study doctor deciding that they look better. This is self-report. Significant reduction in depressive symptoms between baseline and after 3 months of treatment. We also see significant improvements in self-reported sleep, as noted by the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index, way up at the, no, that's wrong, way up at the top. a significant improvement in sleep. We also see improvements on a generalized health survey called the SF-36, significant improvements in physical role, significant improvements in energy, significant improvements in social functioning, and significant improvements in self-reported levels of pain. Let me say really quickly, we have a completely separate subset of pain-related scales. Too much for me to show in this particular presentation, but the patients all report significant improvement, self-reported improvement in pain-related measures after 3 months of treatment. Very importantly, we also see a notable decrease in their use of conventional medications, a 42% reduction in opiate use. This, again, self-report. 46% reduction in benzos, 33% reduction in mood stabilizers, and a 22% reduction in antidepressants. I think this is quite striking. Again, very small sample sizes, but certainly enough of a signal for us to be very excited. So I won't belabor the point too much other than to say we were very interested in their cognitive performance. I spent a lot of time thinking about frontal executive functions, the types of tasks that are mediated by the frontal part of your brain, right behind your eyebrows, things that allow you to inhibit inappropriate responses, make good sound decisions, and detect conflict where appropriate. So we have lots of different measures of these things, including the controlled oral word association task, basically the FAS task. I'm going to give you a letter of the alphabet, name as many words as you can that begin with that letter. Digit symbol substitution test. Patients are basically asked to write as many symbols as they can using a number symbol key, as many as they can do in 90 seconds. Letter number sequencing. Subjects get a string of mixed numbers and letters, and they're told they have to repeat them. First the numbers in order, then the letters. The Stroop color word test, the interference condition, everybody loves this one. The interference condition basically has words printed in a different color ink than they spell. Your brain wants you to read it. That's the most automatic process you have. I want you to name the color of the ink, harder than it sounds. We also have the trail making test, parts A and B. Part A is simply a test of psychomotor speed. How quickly can you connect the dots? Part B introduces an alternating set demand. They have to alternate number, letter, 1A, 2B. Again, harder than it sounds. See, some people are saying, oh, that looks horrible. Doesn't even make a nice picture. Let's start with that. Finally, the Wisconsin card sorting task, one of my favorites, considered for decades to be the gold standard measure of frontal executive function. Very simple. Subjects are given a deck of cards and 4 stimulus cards. They are asked to take one card at a time and place it in front of one of the 4 stimulus cards. What they don't know, after being told correct or incorrect, is that the sorting principles change, and they have to utilize the feedback from the examiner to change their behavior. That's the frontal function. So how do they do? Well, again, significant improvement from baseline to 3 months. One day I'll get this right. If you look up here, we see significant improvements in the FAS task, significant improvements in letter number sequencing, significant improvements in digit symbol substitution. The Stroop color word test, significantly higher accuracy and significantly fewer errors of omission. We see a trend for faster response time during trails. Let me stop and say one quick thing, as if this wasn't quick enough. We have alternate forms of all of these tests, so we don't see any practice effect here. Okay? They have alternate forms of these measures at 3 months. This isn't a practice effect, plus it's been 3 months. Neuroimaging, I run something called the Cognitive and Clinical Neuroimaging Core, where I am fortunate enough to work around lots of lovely magnets retrofitted in such a way that we can do structural, functional, spectroscopic, and diffusion tensor imaging, all with what we call one-stop shopping. So we can take lots of different pieces of information and put them together later. I'm going to show you some data from an fMRI study that we did in all of the patients who were able to complete visit 1 and 2. What about their brain imaging? What do they look like? So at baseline, this is at baseline, so no marijuana on board. We should see some activation, by the way. Typically, we see activation right here in the cingulate cortex during the completion of this task, and we see a little more activation typically in the frontal cortex. What happens after 3 months of treatment? So we see a very striking difference. You don't have to be a neuroscientist to see that these images are different, right? So a very different pattern of activation here in the cingulate and in the frontal cortex, significantly more, quote, voxels activated. If anyone wants a physics primer afterwards, come and see me. But to summarize what this data shows us, we see generally demonstrated improvements in a number of these measures of executive function. This is important because a lot of our work and previous work and work of my colleagues has demonstrated alterations in executive function in recreational users, demonstrating sort of impairment. Participants also exhibited notable increases in activation in the frontal cortex, including the cingulate, which is a region typically activated by healthy controls. This is our group at baseline. This is our group after 3 months. This is a study I did in 2012 of healthy controls. Okay? This is our group after 3 months of treatment. This is a study of healthy controls. Okay? So 3 months of treatment. That's what we see. Overall, findings suggest that participants are able to quantify and report their medical marijuana use throughout the study. We see improvements in cognitive performance that may occur with potential, quote, normalization of function. With regard to mood, sleep, quality of life, we do see some improvements, and very importantly, we see a significant reduction in self-reported use of conventional medications, specifically a 42% reduction in opiates. Given the current crisis, I think that's worth noting. Why are they improved? Symptom alleviation. I feel better so I can think more clearly. That's certainly a possibility. Product choice. We know that unlike recreational strains, many of our medical marijuana patients are choosing strains that are high in other constituents, including cannabidiol. And in fact, a number of these folks are on high CBD-containing products. Certain cannabinoids may actually exert a direct or an indirect effect on cognitive performance. Age of the consumer. These folks, let's just say it, these folks are not necessarily within the window of neurodevelopmental vulnerability. They're not 20 or 22. The average age is 50, as opposed to our recreational sample significantly younger. All of this to be followed with further research. So just for my last minute, I will tell you what else we're up to. We have an FDA-approved clinical trial of a whole plant-derived botanical, high in CBD sublingual tincture, approved by the FDA, approved by the IRB, unfortunately on hold with the DEA.